Hello, and welcome to the Gentle Pause, a safe haven for you to take a pause from all the noise of the day and rest your weary vessel through our light stories. We wish that our story could help you relax and eventually let you drift to the dream realm. Before we begin, make yourself comfortable, take a deep breath, and close your eyes. Enjoy your gentle pause. The day that didn't go as planned. It was one of those days that didn't fall apart loudly. Nothing dramatic happened. Nothing broke. No arguments. No disasters. No big red warning lights. And somehow, that made it harder to explain why it felt so heavy. The morning had started late. Not terribly late, just late enough to feel behind. The kind of late where you're not rushing, but everything is slightly misaligned. The toothbrush falls, the cup spills a little, the shirt you wanted isn't dry yet. Small things, quiet things, but they stack. By the time the door closed behind you, the day already felt like it had used up more energy than it should have. The sky was pale and undecided. Not sunny, not cloudy, just there. The kind of sky that doesn't offer an opinion. The walk to the bus stop felt longer than usual. Not because it was, but because your thoughts were louder than your footsteps. There was a message you hadn't replied to, a task you had postponed, a plan you were supposed to feel excited about. You told yourself you would deal with it, with all of it, later. Later is a very patient word. It waits quietly. It never argues. The bus came. You boarded. Sat. Looked out the window without really seeing anything. Buildings passed like muted shapes in a dream you weren't fully inside. Someone left 2 seats behind you. A bright, sudden laugh. And for a moment, it felt like hearing music from another room. Not yours, but nice to know it exists. Work, or maybe class, or the place you needed to be, unfolded in a series of completed motions. You showed up. You answered. You nodded. You did what needed doing. From the outside, it would have looked like a perfectly acceptable day. Inside, though, there was a quiet sentence repeating. I'm more tired than this day deserves. No one noticed. Not because they didn't care, but because tiredness like this doesn't make noise. It sits politely, It waits its turn. By afternoon, your energy had thinned into something transparent. You could still function, but everything required negotiation. One more email, one more task, one more small decision. It's strange how many decisions hide inside an ordinary day. What to reply, when to stand, whether to start now or later, whether you're hungry or just bored. When the day finally loosened its grip and let you go, the relief wasn't dramatic. It was soft. Like setting down a bag you forgot you were carrying. The trip home felt quieter than the morning trip out. The same streets, different weight. Evening light stretched along the walls and windows, turning ordinary glass into something briefly colder. You didn't check your phone much. Not out of discipline, just lack of appetite. When you reached your door, the key turned with a familiar, forgiving click. Home didn't ask questions. Home rarely does. You stepped inside and stood still for a moment. Not from thought, just from the simple comfort of not needing to move yet. Shoes off, back down, breath out. There is a very specific silence that exists only when you live alone, or when no one else is home yet. It's not empty, it's spacious. The kind of silence that makes room for your shoulders to drop. You washed your hands slowly. The water was warmer than expected. That helped more than it should have. In the kitchen, you opened the fridge and stared. Not searching, just looking. Like the answers to dinner might introduce itself if given enough time. But it didn't. But something simple would do. Something warm. Something that didn't require decisions with consequences. While the food heated, you leaned against the counter and closed your eyes. Just briefly. Not to sleep. Just to reset the noise inside your head. It worked. Not completely, but enough. Enough is underrated. You ate without a screen. Not intentionally, just naturally. Bite, breathe, sit. The clock ticked somewhere behind you, like a patient metronome. Outside, the sky deepened into evening properly now. The undecided morning had made up its mind. Night, it chose. And somehow, that felt right. After eating, you didn't rush to clean up right away. The plate stayed where it was. The cup too. Not out of laziness, just permission. a small allowance granted by no one in particular. The window was slightly open, and the evening air had started to move differently now. Cooler, slower, like the world itself had lowered its voice. Somewhere outside, a motorbike passed, then faded, then nothing again. You turned on a single lamp instead of the main light. The room changed personality immediately. Softer edges, kinder shadows, less expectation. There's something about lamplight that feels like a conversation instead of an announcement. You sat down, not with purpose, just because sitting felt correct. The day replayed a little, not the events, just the feeling of moving through them, like watching footprints instead of the walking. It really hadn't been a bad day. That was the strange part. If someone asked, "How was your day?" You could answer, "Fine," without lying. And yet, your chest still carried that quiet weight. Sometimes tiredness doesn't come from difficulty. Sometimes it comes from duration, from being on for too long, from holding shape, from responding instead of resting. Your phone lit up with a notification, then another. Neither urgent, neither necessary right now. You turned the screen face down. Not a grand act of self-control, just a gentle preference for quiet. On the shelf nearby sat something you hadn't touched in a while. A book, slightly bent at the corner. Not a serious book, not an impressive one, just a comfortable one. You picked it up and opened to a random page. No catching up, no tracking progress. Just reading a paragraph like tasting soup. Halfway through, you realized you weren't really reading anymore, just holding the book. That was okay too. Rest doesn't always look like rest from the outside. Minutes passed, or maybe more, in that soft, unmeasured way time has when it's not being monitored. The room slowly became a place instead of a station. A place to be, not just pass through. You thought about the message you hadn't replied earlier. It felt less sharp now, more manageable. Distance changes the size of things. You still didn't reply yet. But now, it felt like a choice, not avoidance. That's a different feeling entirely. From the neighboring unit came a faint sound. Laughter through a wall, blurred by distance and structure. It didn't feel intrusive, just human. Proof that other evenings were happening at the same time as yours. You weren't behind. You weren't missing out. You were simply here. The sink eventually got cleaned, not as a chore, just as the next small movement. Warm water again. Gentle circles. No hurry. You dried your hands slowly, like someone who had nowhere else to report to tonight. Because you didn't. And that, unexpectedly, felt like a gift. Later, you noticed how different the room sounded at night. Not quieter, exactly, but rounder. As if every sound had been wrapped in cloth before reaching your ears. The clock ticked again. Steady, faithful, unconcerned with how productive the day had been. You wondered briefly when you started measuring days so closely. When did a day become something to justify? There was a time, not that long ago, when a day could simply be lived and set down. No scorecard, no evaluation, just experience. Somewhere along the way, effort began asking for proof. Tonight, though, you didn't feel like proving anything. You felt like being. You changed into comfortable clothes, the kind chosen not for appearance, but for forgiveness. Fabric that didn't argue. Sleeves that understood. In the bathroom mirror, your face looked the same, but softer around the edges. Fatigue? Yes, but also honesty. No performance left to maintain. You brushed your teeth slowly. Not because you were tired, but because slow felt right. There are small rituals that hold a day together at the end. Simple acts that say, "We are done now." You can let go. You turned off another light, then another. The apartment gradually shifted into night mode. Not dark, just dimmed into calm. Back in the main room, you sat once more. This time, without the leftover weight from earlier. The heaviness had changed shape. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't pressing anymore. It rested beside you instead of on top of you. That's progress people rarely notice. You thought again about the day that didn't go as planned. It hadn't been efficient. It hadn't been impressive. It hadn't been memorable. But it had been real. And real days count, even the uneven ones. Especially the uneven ones. A strange comfort settled in. The kind that doesn't arrive with excitement, only certainty. Not every day needs to succeed to be enough. You reached for your phone, not to scroll, just to set an alarm. Tomorrow would come, as it always does, without needing to be chased. Before setting it down, You sent one small message at last. Short, honest, unpolished. Sorry for the late reply. Today was a bit full. I'll answer properly tomorrow. No overthinking, no editing. Just true. Sent. It felt lighter than expected. Outside, the night continued doing what night does. Holding things without asking questions. You stood, stretched once, slow, unobserved, and felt your shoulders release something they had been storing since morning. The bed looked inviting in a way only beds can at the correct hour. Not tempting, not seductive, just ready. You slipped under the blanket and let the fabric settle naturally, like water finding level. There was nothing left to solve tonight. Nothing left to optimize. Nothing left to repair. Only rest remained. Your last waking thought wasn't a conclusion, or a lesson, or a promise to do better tomorrow. It was simpler than that. It was this: some days don't go as planned, and still they bring you home. Good night. Thank you for joining us in our journey to the dream realm. Please support us by liking this video and subscribe to our channel. Let us know of your experience and your feedback for us to improve ourselves in this journey together. Hopefully, we will see you again in our next journey. Good night, and we will see you in your next pause.